Your latest weather update from the Met Office. Tomorrow will be a drier day for many of us, but it is still going to be very, very wet across parts of eastern Scotland with potential for flooding. This area of low pressure is responsible. It's just slowly creeping up the eastern side at the moment, and around it the winds are just feeding in a lot of moisture, and that means plenty more rain across the eastern parts of Scotland. We have an amber weather warning coming into force at midnight, covering parts of Perth and Kinross, Aberdeenshire and Angus, and a broader yellow warning still in place across much of eastern Scotland. Further south, the rain is starting to ease across northern England. Still a few showers, particularly to the west of the Pennines. Some showers coming into Northern Ireland too. Clearer skies across the south, although even here a few showers in the southwest. But it really is the northeast that bears the brunt of the heavy rain during Friday. Still very gusty winds here as well, as there will be for the Northern Isles, and say those strong winds just feeding in the moisture from the North Sea. The potential for flooding, some very fast flowing and dangerous rivers as well. A few showers continue over northwest England, southwest Scotland. Elsewhere, many places dry. Some sunny spells in the south, which could see highs of 13, but certainly a lot cooler than that with the cloud and the persistent rain and the gusty winds in the northeast that do finally start to ease during Friday night. And then we're left with clear spells for many on Friday night, and this is a frost forming across Northern Ireland. It will be a chilly start here. Pockets of frost also likely across the West Midlands, Wales and southwest England. So a chilly start to the weekend, but actually quite a bright start with plenty of sunshine, and much of Wales, western Scotland, southern parts of England will stay that way. There will be quite a lot of cloud across these central and eastern areas with some patchy rain, but nothing like as heavy or as persistent as it has been. Temperatures, again, for many only single figures, maybe 10 or 11 across the southwest. Some rain waiting to move in, though, on Saturday night.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join me, Arlene Foster, for the briefing on GB News. Every Friday at 3 p.m, I'll give you all the latest political news and analysis, and we'll have robust live debate. To make sure that you're caught up on all of the biggest issues of the day, we'll bring on experts in their field. I'll ask the questions that you'd like to ask. We're not afraid to tackle discussions from all perspectives, including yours. Don't forget, the briefing with me, Arlene Foster, every Friday at 3 p.m. on GB News.
It's Thursday night, and this is Farage at Large. Live from Southampton, please welcome your host, Nigel Farage.
Yes, we're here. It's Farage at Large. We're in Southampton, the birthplace, of course, of our Prime Minister. We've had the budget today. I want to find out from this audience, what do they think of the budget? Do they feel optimistic? Do they feel pessimistic? We're going to get their reactions, lots of thought, loads of analysis. But first, let's get the news with Tamsin Roberts.
Nigel, thank you. Good evening from the GB Newsroom. The Chancellor has delivered his plans to get the economy back on track as he acknowledges the UK's already in recession. As part of his autumn statement, Jeremy Hunt has reduced the threshold for the higher rate of income tax from £150,000 to just over £125,000. The state pension, benefits and tax credits will rise in line with inflation by more than 10%. Millions of households will pay more in energy bills from April, the typical bill rising from £2,500 to £3,000 as the government reduces the level of support. And energy firms will be hit with an expanded windfall tax of 35%, up from 25%. The Chancellor has vowed to protect the poorest and believes his plan will help rebuild the economy.
What can we do with our plan for stability and our plan for growth? Well, the Office for Budget Responsibility, which is an independent organisation, they say that what we're doing will reduce the impact of that fall in living standards by half next year. So we are helping every bit as much as we can. And we're also saying to people that as we do that, we're protecting the public services that really matter, the NHS, schools, the things that are going to help us get through to the other side and become a really strong, dynamic economy, which is what we all want.
Well, following this statement, Shadow Chancellor Rachel Reeves accused the Conservatives of failing to learn from decisions made over the past decade.
This government has forced our economy into a doom loop, where low growth leads to higher taxes, lower investment and squeezed wages, with a running down of public services, all of which hits economic growth again. And instead of learning from the mistakes of the last decade, they're simply repeating them. We need to break free from this vicious cycle of stagnation with fairer choices and a proper plan for economic growth.
Household disposable incomes are heading for their biggest fall on record, according to the Office for Budget Responsibility. The OBR says that once rising prices are taken into account, people's incomes would drop by 7% in the next 2 fiscal years. The government's forecaster also says that living standards won't recover to last year's levels for another 6 years. To America now, and Nancy Pelosi has stepped down as Speaker of the US House of Representatives. Her announcement comes after the Democrats lost the House to the Republicans in the midterm elections. The Republicans will swear in the new Speaker in January next year. Nancy Pelosi will stay in Congress as a backbench lawmaker.
And with great confidence in our caucus, I will not seek re-election to Democratic leadership in the next Congress. For me, the hours come for a new generation to lead the Democratic caucus that I so deeply respect.
Ground handlers at London's Heathrow Airport will begin a 72-hour strike from tomorrow in a dispute over pay. The Unite union says the strike action is by workers at aviation services firm Menzies. It'll affect a range of airlines and disrupt a number of flights from Terminals 2, 3 and 4. TV, online and DAB+ radio, this is GB News. Now it's back to Nigel in Southampton.
Good evening. We're here live in Southampton, of course, the city that is the birthplace of our current Prime Minister. Who knows how long this one will last. Why did we choose tonight for Southampton to react to the budget? Well, I'll tell you why. Very simple. This city has the highest number of small independent businesses per capita of any city in the United Kingdom. The private sector here is busy, it's active. Also, since 2019, Southampton has taken a much bigger hit than other cities. Living standards already, before the recession begins, have fallen by 6%. You see, the point is, folks, if you're in the public sector, if you're in the civil service, you haven't actually paid anything for the pandemic. But everybody else is. And the bill came in today. There are eye-watering tax increases between now and 2028 for those that are working. The working population are being asked to pay for the pandemic. I look back on it now and think, well, Sweden didn't lock down completely. Florida, under Ron DeSantis, didn't lock down completely. We did, and I have a feeling taxpayers are going to be picking up this tab for many, many years to come. To me, well, he talked about spending cuts today, but nothing very specific there. I'm going to recommend a spending cut we could take that would make no difference to growth in our economy. We're due to spend 100 billion quid on a train line between London and Manchester just so that businessmen and women can have one more aperitif before their lunch in London. Not that I'm against that sort of thing, you understand. Get rid of HS2, there'd be no need for tax cuts whatsoever. And the implications for small business, at least my view, there's been a war launched against the little man and little woman. This government, in the shape of Sunak and Hunt, they're on the side of the big global industries. They're not on the side of people in cities like this that are going out and doing their own thing and taking a risk. I think this is a completely rotten budget. I think to go into this with big tax rises as we go into, and the OBR today confirmed we're in recession, is a mistake. Before I go to Liam Halligan, our economics editor, I want to ask the audience, a hands up, a hands down, who is happy with today's budget? Hands up. Oh, come on, there's always one, surely. Go on. Who is unhappy with the budget? And who is undecided? Right, well, we have a fairly sceptical audience, I think it's fair to say, here in Southampton. Liam Halligan, I came into politics having run my own business for 9 years. I remember months when I paid the staff more than I was paid. You know, you get good times and bad times in business. Just run through what has happened to Britain's 5.5 million small businesses and sole traders today.
Well, small and medium-sized enterprises, Nigel, are the backbone of our economy. They're the engine room of the world's sixth biggest economy, these SMEs. A lot of SMEs will have taken today a hit in the form of a 6 percentage point rise in corporation tax from 19 to 25%.
Which is a 30% rise.
Given that a lot of these small and medium-sized businesses will have been hammered during lockdown, clinging on, dealing with massive energy bills, dealing with higher staff costs, dealing with huge supply chain pressures. These are businesses that haven't got the power in the supply chain, the buying power to get a sweetheart deal, as a lot of the big businesses have. They have to absorb the cost pressures. They can't always pass them on. And now they've taken a big hit in terms of corporation tax. At the same time, Nigel, a lot of ordinary men and women on not particularly big incomes are going to be dragged into higher tax brackets. The starting rate of income tax is about 12.5 grand. That's going to stay where it is until 2028. A lot dragging in 2 or 3 million more low-income workers.
6 years.
Absolutely. At the same time, you've got the 50 grand roughly top rate of tax over which you pay 40%. Again, 2.5 million extra people are going to be dragged into that. You know, middle-ranking teachers and nurses, they're not well paid. The inheritance tax threshold is staying where it is until 2028. It's been at 325 grand since 2009, almost 20 years. You want to leave your house to your kid, and obviously that threshold is the main threshold that impacts you. At the same time, I think we've had a forecast from the OBR. We are in recession now, officially, according to the OBR. No other big economy, Nigel, is raising taxes to this extent into the teeth of a slowdown. And what worries me, it's all about trust between individuals, people running their own businesses, people trying to make ends meet every day, and the state. What we've seen today, I'm afraid, from Rishi Sunak, a son of this town, and Jeremy Hunt, we've seen an awful lot of stealth taxes, not being open and honest about the extent to which taxes are rising. And then we've seen spending cuts, which are unspecified in terms of timing or department. This is not the way to manage an economy. You have to be upfront and open with the British public. You have to treat them like adults. And I think today we were taken for fools.
Somebody working. Let's say somebody working, doing well in their job, earning 45,000, 50,000 a year, How much more tax would they pay in 2028 compared to now?
If you're lucky enough to be, well, let's take 33 grand, which is the average wage in this country. It's a pretty good wage. If you're on 33 grand, the freezing of tax thresholds on current inflation assumptions dragging you in means that between now and 2028, you will pay an extra £2,500 on income tax. That's a huge amount of money, right? You can buy a car for your kid, right? You can have a family holiday of a lifetime on that money. That's just been taken away from you today. If you are on £50,000, Nigel, again, using the inflation assumptions that the OBR's given us today, then you will pay an extra £6,500 between now and 2028 just on your income tax. Then there's all the other additional taxes that have come in today. So this is a big tax grab. Already, at the beginning of today, we had the highest tax burden, tax as a share of our national income, since the early 1950s, since Labour's government under Clem Attlee, and now, between now and over the next 5-year period, the trajectory of this autumn statement, the tax burden's going to get even higher.
Are we paying for the lockdown?
I think a lot of it, obviously there's a cost of living crisis. Everyone in this room knows that. Everyone watching and listening to GB News knows that there is a cost of living crisis. The OBR says that inflation is going to average 9.1% this year, and it's still going to be very high, 7.2% next year. So there's lots more cost of living rises to come. But of course, we are suffering from the fact that we locked down so deeply and so heavily in this country. And we need to be honest and open about that.
I agree.
And I don't think Rishi Sunak or Jeremy Hunt are being open and honest.
No, I have to say, just quickly, Liam, marks out of 10 for the budget?
Oh, 3.5 at best.
At best, 3.5. In a moment, coming into the Lion's Den is the leader of the local Conservative group on Southampton Council, Dan Fitzhenry. I think the audience might have just 1 or 2 questions for him. See you in a moment.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here. You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Join me, Arlene Foster, for the briefing on GB News. Every Friday at 3 p.m, I'll give you all the latest political news and analysis, and we'll have robust live debate. To make sure that you're caught up on all of the biggest issues of the day, we'll bring on experts in their field. I'll ask the questions that you'd like to ask. We're not afraid to tackle discussions from all perspectives, including yours. Don't forget, the briefing with me, Arlene Foster, every Friday at 3 p.m. on GB News.
Hello, I'm Alastair Stewart, and I'd invite you to join me at noon on Saturdays and Sundays for Alastair Stewart and Friends. I've been in this business for over 40 years. Now, here at GB News, I've never been happier. I get to choose the big stories that really interest me. We hear what you have to say, and you hear what I have to say. I really hope you can join me, noon on Saturdays and Sundays.
So, some of your thoughts from home. Carl says, this is austerity 2.0. I like this. If we wanted a Labour government, we'd have voted for one. And yes, they're both tax and spend parties. Another viewer picks up on a very important point. They hid the fuel hike. They didn't just admit it, they intentionally hid it. This is deception on a scale from a government that should not be ignored. If they lie about that, what more serious things do they lie about? Well, cost of lockdown might just be one of them, in my opinion. And finally, Simon says, so, hard-working people once again pay for those who don't work, not can't work. And this is a reference to the fact there are 5.4 million people of working age in Britain today not working. Nearly half of them are on long-term disability benefits. And without wishing to sound mean, I just don't believe they're all genuine. I think there are a lot of people, frankly, skiving off, and those that go out to work and work long hours and run their businesses increasingly are picking up the tab for this. Now, joining me is Councillor Dan Fitzhenry, the leader of the Conservative group here on Southampton City Council. This is a very marginal political place. One Conservative seat, one Labour seat. You guys were in charge of a city council, now you're not. How do you think, of the 50 cities of this country, the one that has the biggest number per capita of private, independent businesses, how do you think they're feeling after Hunt's budget today?
Well, I think the first thing is people are naturally feeling under the pressure, aren't we? In public life, in private life, in all sorts of life. Very, very difficult circumstances. And I think today people will be going, look, the governments have to make tough decisions and that they want more. But actually right now we need to get on with the job, which is what I think the government is doing in terms of the energy price caps and creating an environment where we can actually see a way out of this. And I think the Chancellor was very clear. Stability, growth and public services, investment over the next few years and moving forward. This is not an easy scenario, Nigel, as you know. It's a very difficult scenario.
No, it isn't, Dan. I mean, it's funny, isn't it? Because 55 days ago, we had your government give us the biggest tax-cutting budget of our lives, and now we've got the biggest tax-raising budget of our lives. I mean, you're all over the shop, aren't you?
I don't think so. I think
really?
we had a Prime Minister that was elected. That didn't work. That Prime Minister has resigned. We now have a new Prime Minister.
An unelected Prime Minister.
A Prime Minister that has come in.
What does that say? What does that say about democracy?
This is we have a mandate from the 19 election, and we want to get on and deliver that. We are Conservatives. We believe in a
Really?
We are Conservatives.
Sorry, let's just clarify that. So high tax, big state, and launch a war on small businesses. Is that Conservative?
I don't think there's a war on small businesses.
Well, let's think about this.
I don't think.
I tell you, as somebody who's been a small businessman for much of my life, before politics and media, I feel this very strongly. You've increased corporation tax by 30%.
Yeah.
Right? You have increased,
with exceptions.
You've increased dividends. You've increased dividend taxes. You've lowered all the levels at which people start to pay dividend tax, capital gains tax, and worst of all, the IR35 rules, which are so damaging to people out there, whether they're lorry drivers or computer programmers. You know, I cheered when Kwarteng said those rules would be reviewed. You've now kicked them into touch. This really is, frankly, a kick in the teeth for small businesses and for independent service providers.
No, I think this is a scenario where we are coming out of a pandemic that we all know the government had to step in with COVID support.
Did we have to lock down again and again?
I'm not here to go through the lockdowns ins and outs. I'm here to ask you to answer your questions about what locally is going on in Southampton and also.
All right, no, fair enough.
But I think we are paying now for the cost of the support, which we knew we would, And Rishi Sunak was very clear as Chancellor that there would be costs to come. He did say that. Now, we don't want that scenario. We want to get on and grow business. I've spent my life like you, rising and falling growing businesses. I know what it's like. And as a city, that's what we are very proud, that we have a large number of people that started during the pandemic.
No, this is one of the great features of Southampton.
Absolutely.
There are so many independently minded people here that want to get up off their backsides, take a risk and do.
Yeah.
And I admire that.
Yeah.
I admire. But you know what, Dan, if I was a 25-year-old now with a really good business idea that I thought I could make a lot of money on, and I thought I could do much of it on Zoom without needing to, be in Southampton or London every day, I think I'd move to Portugal or Italy, where they're offering me tax deals and incentives to go. My genuine worry, is we're going to have a brain drain from this country. It happened in the 70s under a Labour government that overtaxed us. Can you tell me, economically, is there now any difference in terms of the impact on people's lives here in Southampton as to whether we have Rachel Reeves as Chancellor or Jeremy Hunt?
Oh, absolutely. And I can tell you locally what that would mean as well from a council perspective. Well, firstly, we are Conservatives that believe in low tax as a fundamental position, right? That is the baseline.
It's laughable.
It's not. We are dealing with the outcome of the COVID pandemic, a supply chain problem, and, as the Chancellor said today, a scenario caused by the invasion of Ukraine. That's the fundamentals that we're dealing with.
Inflation. I'm really sorry.
But in Southampton, maybe I can answer this easier from what I can control. When we ran the council, and many of the people that live here, we froze council tax. Labour will put it up. When we ran the council, we froze rents for people. This year, they will put them up. We scrapped evening parking charges for people coming into our city. Labour have put them back up. We froze service charges for people in our estates. Labour have put them back up. So, the things I can control, that we are in control of, we were very clear.
I accept that point, Dan, totally, but, you are part of a national...
I am part of a national
You're part of a national political party. One of the first things Hunt said was the Bank of England has done an outstanding job. They have been absolutely catastrophic, and inflation was here before Ukraine. Now, I want to get... And by the way, thank you for coming into the hot seat today, because, I sense one or two of the audience are less than chuffed by the budget. But I want to get one or two of your thoughts from the audience, questions perhaps that you've got. There's a hand up over there. Just wait a moment, a microphone is coming to you. If you would stand up and introduce yourself, please, sir.
My name's Chris. When Cynical gave out the handouts for the lockdown, he wasn't including the self-employed. And now he's absolutely... He was pressured into giving it to the self-employed. And now he's really screwing the pockets out of them. It's outrageous.
Yeah, Chris, I get your point. The last people on the list to help during lockdown were small, independent businesses. People... acting as directors of their own limited companies, which millions of people do. And Chris's point is, this war against the self-employed and small businesses just goes on. And it's almost, to a lot of people of a certain age, who lived through the 80s, etc., it's almost incomprehensible that it's a party that calls itself Conservative that is stifling enterprise.
Well, I think the start point is during the pandemic, we had the COVID relief support that came out. And, of course, the first priority was to protect the large number of people that were employed, because that was a huge challenge, and the government moved at a huge pace to do it. There are a number of challenges with self-employed. I was one of those people writing to MPs and talking to our MPs. But it was more complicated because of the tax system.
All right.
Could we have done more? Maybe we could have.
Well, maybe some mistakes were made.
But I will say this, though, Nigel. When we ran the council in Southampton, our entire proposition was about supporting small businesses, get the city moving, supporting people that were rent payers, council taxpayers, and we did those things within our gift. Well, and I would hope if, in the future, once the economy returns, that a Conservative government can get back to doing the things that we all want to do.
Well, we'd love that to happen. And to be fair, on business rates, there has been some quite good news today, cancelling out what Labour. Any more thoughts, views? Anybody want to ask a question of the leader of the Conservative group? Sir, microphone on its way. Introduce yourself, please.
Hi, I'm Matt. Question for you, Dan. Why should anybody continue to vote for the Conservatives, or as I've named them, the Con-Socialists? We've got the highest taxes in 70 years. And not a single public service works as it should. You should be ashamed of yourself as a party.
Thanks, Matt. I think the first start point is we have been elected in 2019 as a general Conservative government and we dealt with Brexit. We then dealt with the pandemic. We've dealt with, well, we've delivered Brexit, and then we have a series of challenges that have come about beyond our control. Now, would we find ourselves in a position where we want to be putting up taxes at the highest level? No, we wouldn't naturally. And as I said, locally, when we ran this council last year, and this year had we been rerunning it again, the intrinsic things we want to do is freeze taxes or cut them and make an environment where businesses survive and succeed. That was all the things that we did locally. Now, there are a number of things that, in the scenario that we're in, raising taxes is not a Conservative thing to want to be doing. But is it right that we bring balance to the public services and carry on investing in the NHS, in schools uplift, in uplifting pensions and in uplifting benefits today? I think that's the right thing to do, and there is a cost to that.
Well, you said there's a cost to that. Lockdown was a decision made by your government. You know, it was a decision. It didn't have to be made, but it was made. And you say, you know, you don't want to raise taxes. Well, why are you doing it? It's a choice. You get growth by cutting taxes, getting people spending in the economy, and that's the complete opposite of what your government have chosen to do today. I personally, and I'm sure the whole room agree, it's time for something different now. We've had enough of the Conservatives, and we've got two socialist parties, the Conservative Party and the Labour Party now, two forms of socialism, and it really is time for something different, and I'm sure the public and the people here in the room completely agree.
Well, I have to say...
At the end of the day, Nigel, the furlough scheme was a government intervention that saved many jobs and livelihoods. The energy price cap is a government intervention required because of the scenario we're in. Now, sometimes you have to make pragmatic decisions that might go against...
And Dan, we could have done what Sweden did. We could have done what Florida did. We could have taken precautions but not locked down the economy. Listen,
we are where we are now, aren't we?
I want to say to Leader of the Conservative Group on Southampton City Council, Dan, well done for coming on today into a very tough atmosphere.
It's good fun.
Good for you. Good for you. Give him a round of applause. In a moment, we will take some more questions from the audience and get business reaction. Back with you in a couple of minutes.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you know, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. There's never been a more interesting but also critical time in British politics, and I can't wait to bring you the biggest stories of the day with the best factual accuracy and also a few of my own opinions thrown in. We'll engage in passionate but always polite debate with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Monday to Thursday, 10 till 12 on TV, on radio and online.
Every Friday and Sunday night from 9, it's Mark Dolan Tonight.
We're on the same page again. There's something weird happening.
Let Ian finish. Don't be such a cranky.
That mini budget was the tip of the iceberg.
And on Saturday, my show just got bigger. From 8, it's Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In.
You can't govern a country if you can't speak.
Stop talking. My God, we reached the end. I've never been early in my life. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing. You see, amazing.
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel. Engaged audience here in Southampton. A lot of not very happy people. It's time for Barrage the Farage. I know the names of the people. I've no idea what they're going to ask, which is why I've got Liam Halligan back, because he's a real expert. Let's begin with Ali, who has a question for us. Ali, good evening. One moment.
As a self-employed bookkeeper running accounts and payroll for small businesses around Salisbury Plain, I've never known such concern at the uncertain financial demands facing them. The family-run garage of 2 generations, employing 5 mechanics, has seen its annual electricity bill increase from £2,900 to £13,500, 465%. To what extent has the dogged pursuit of net zero contributed to many small businesses throwing in the towel?
Well, Ali, really interesting. One thing he was absolutely clear about, Hunt, today, was that our net zero targets aren't just staying, we're going to try and get there even more quickly. And that means lots and lots and lots of more lovely wind farms in the English Channel and in the North Sea. It means billions of pounds of our money being transferred to poorer third world countries to help them go for renewable energy. And it means that we're paying way too much for our energy, and it means the lights could go out in February. The one good thing I will say is that they are going on with Sizewell to build that nuclear power station, because that gives you reliable energy. It gives you baseload energy. This mob are utterly committed to net zero. They don't seem to even have even worked out that China built 80 new coal-fired power stations last year, that we contribute less than 1% of CO2. They are committed. Liam, he was pretty clear on this, wasn't he?
He was, and I'd agree with Ali that so many small and medium-sized enterprises are worried, and big businesses too, who have life a lot easier most of the time. What we're seeing at the moment is an investment strike by lots of companies. They won't invest because the tax environment is so high and there's so much uncertainty out there, and a lack of confidence about how the economy is being managed. And it goes back to my earlier point, Nigel. Is it really right at a time when the economy is already stalling that we raise the tax burden even more on households and, crucially, firms as well? Yeah. That will slow the economy down further,
I'm very worried
less revenue, and will be even deeper in the fiscal hole.
No, I agree. Ali, thank you very much indeed for your question. Samantha is the next.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I hope I'm in good company with other small business owners. I'd like to bring up the subject of the fact that the Chancellor is holding the threshold at which businesses must register to pay VAT at £85,000 until 2026. It actually hasn't been increased since 2017, even though turnover for small business has been pushed up by government-introduced costs such as minimum wage, which puts up holiday pay, sick pay, national insurance, and also business insurance, which is often calculated on wage roll. So there's been no give there. So it's actually one of the stealth taxes that you were talking about earlier. I find this shocking that this is happening and that it's stifling business. Is the decision to freeze the VAT threshold really a decision by a government who's genuinely encouraging growth?
No, it is not. And as I say, in 55 days, they've done a complete U-turn on the entire philosophy of what this government is about. And it's... when he defended it, he kept referring to the European Union and Europe. That we're not there. Well, the thing is, we voted, 68% in Southampton. We voted to leave the European Union, not to be compared to it. Quick thought on that, Liam, from you to Samantha, who feels very passionately about this.
The VAT threshold being frozen, the IHT threshold being frozen, the income qualification level after which you don't qualify for child benefit, the personal tax rate at 12.5 grand, the top rate of tax at 50 grand, the upper rate of tax being reduced from 150 grand to 125 grand. It's all stealth taxes, it's all frozen allowances. The government thinks we're too thick to understand it. I think the British people are far smarter than that.
And let's go to Sebastian. Sebastian, hello.
Hi there, Nigel. Yes, you mentioned this earlier. You talked a bit about brain drain, and it's a huge concern that I don't think enough people are talking about. We seem to be in an incredibly hostile business environment, and it's easier than ever for young people to want to move elsewhere. They can go to Portugal, they can go as far as Dubai, Singapore, and the tax incentives to go there are great. I'll never leave this country. I love it, every field and every hedgerow. But I know a lot of people will seriously consider whether they should, whether they can see their future here, unfortunately.
Yeah, and, you know, business has changed. And if you need to have a meeting, you can fly back from Lisbon in a couple of hours, you know, back into a London airport. You can come for a couple of days. You can do that 30, 40 times a year and keep all the tax breaks that you're getting in Portugal. The rest you can do on Zoom because there's been a change of culture. The brain drain, really, really... Very pleased you're staying, dear boy, but the brain, but the brain drain, Liam, it is a problem, isn't it?
It is, and I would highlight why so many people are thinking about leaving the UK, young people, as they did in the 70s. It's the cost of trying to get on that housing ladder, trying to get yourself a home. Something that was almost unnoticed amidst the tsunami of measures today is that the changes to stamp duty, residential stamp duty, which Truss and Kwarteng introduced, they're going to be scrapped after March 2025. Yeah. So the doubling of the rate of, up until which you don't pay stamp duty, 125 to 250 grand, that's going to go back to 125 grand. And the stamp duty holiday for first-time buyers up to 450 grand, it strikes me that's going to be scrapped as well. Almost uncommented upon, but there will be many, many people under 30, part of a generation who are paying more for their housing costs, more on their rent, less likely to own a home than any generation since the 1930s. They'll be absolutely gutted about that, and someone on mainstream television has to point that out.
Good, you just did. Kevin is next up. Kevin.
Hello, Nigel and Liam. I came out of hospital recently after a heart attack, and I've got to go back for a heart bypass at some point. And I'm wondering, well, I'll be on the waiting list with 7 million other people probably. But the question I've got is about the financial statement by the Chancellor. He said that the NHS will get 3.3 billion and adult social care 1 billion next year and 1.7 billion in 2024. Is this going to be enough?
First things first, Kevin, good luck with the bypass.
Thanks, yeah.
I really mean that. Second point, I was shocked to read that 20% of this city are on waiting lists. 20% of Southampton are on waiting lists. I think, and we haven't got time to do this properly, my gut instinct is it doesn't actually matter how much money you throw at the NHS. Until you've reformed it and stopped the waste, you're frankly pouring it down a drain.
I'd say I hope this autumn statement doesn't give you any more problems with your ticker. But we desperately need to have a debate, not about free at the point of use healthcare. We all support free at the point of use healthcare. No one's going to get rid of free at the point of use healthcare, though we're the only country in the developed world that runs a massive monolithic state-funded health system. 1.3 million employees. There's a better way to do things. You get better outcomes in terms of health diagnostics.
Absolutely.
If you organise a health system that delivers free at the point of use in a way that we could actually, in this case, Nigel, we could learn a lot from our partners in Europe, our other European countries, the French, the Dutch, the Germans, the Danes. They all deliver free at the point of use healthcare on roughly the same amount of money as us per head and far, far better health outcomes. The NHS is not world class. We have to admit it.
No, the end, I mean, Boris Johnson kept saying it was the envy of the world. Well, it isn't anymore. Lastly, briefly, Lucy, you've got a question for us.
So I have a beauty salon in my own house, and my constant worry, and it has been since all of it's been announced, is that because I'm so service-based, I will be one of the first sort of industries to go because people will be prioritising where they're spending their money. I already had that worry after the lockdowns because people were either worried about going out in case they got COVID. They obviously had other things to pay for that wasn't having eyelashes or eyebrows done. So my question is, has the announcement today failed people like us?
Well, look, I think people will still come to you, I'm sure, and get their eyelashes done. I don't know. No, not. Well, I thought about it once, but not for long. Look, when times get tough, people make decisions and they choose what they have to cut. And I can't say, how that affects you. I just think that going into a recession is not the time to be raising taxes. I just think we need to cut public spending, yet what I saw today provided no solid evidence of where it would come from. And I repeat the point. I cannot see the point of blowing £100 billion plus. I can get into Manchester from Euston in 2 hours and 7 minutes as it is. We do not need HS2. If they scrap that, we can avoid a lot of this. Let's be truthful, Lucy. It's going to be a tough year. And you will just have to be better than your competitors at what you do. And that actually is how the free market works in tough times. Final thought from Liam.
I agree with you on HS2, Nigel. All the international evidence shows that high-speed rail draws passengers and commerce into the capital rather than spreading it out to the regions. This HS2 is just going to make Sutton Coldfield on the outskirts of Birmingham a commuting suburb of London. Far better if we revolutionise local commuter rail service into and out of great cities like Manchester, like Newcastle, like Southampton, like Bristol, rather than this vanity project. And we are a service-oriented economy, Lucy. That's one reason why we felt locked down so badly. But it's people like you, young, smart people, willing to get up, do something, take a risk, run your own business, plough your own furrows, stand on your own 2 feet, that are going to get Britain back on its feet economically. And my hope is, and it is a hope, Nigel, but I think it will happen, is that the British people will prosper despite these policies today, rather than because of them.
Because, like Lucy, they'll work hard. That's absolutely. Right. No, I agree with that. And, local transport links, east-west transport links. I'm sure these people in Southampton would like to get so much closer to Portsmouth. I'm really sure they would. Now, in a moment, I'll be joined by Le God. He played 443 games for Southampton. In a moment, Matt Le Tissier joins me for Talking Bucks.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
to each and every one of you
for helping our great nation
find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England, Scotland,
Wales and Northern Ireland. On TV,
on radio and online.
We're proud to be
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flock at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Steyn. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Well, it's time for Talking Pints. I can't think of anybody better to sit here in Southampton and do Talking Pints with other than Le God. Welcome to Talking Pints.
Cheers, Nigel.
443 games for Southampton.
That was only in the league.
Yep.
It was 540 altogether.
Was it?
Just saying.
Sorry, I apologise for doing you down. Well, that's FA Cups and all the other things.
Absolutely.
So your whole career, never felt like leaving, never tempted to go anywhere else?
I was close. When I was 21 and very young and impressionable, Spurs tried to buy me, and I was very close to joining Spurs. That was a team that I supported as a boy, so it was a bit of a temptation. But in the end, I came to my senses, and I decided it was the right thing for me to do, to stay at Southampton. And with my hand on my heart, I don't have a single regret about spending my whole career at Southampton Football Club. Not a single regret.
Good for you. Well, you know what? In an age when people appear to be more motivated by money than loyalty, I think that's rather admirable. Now, interestingly, of the 48 penalties that you took for the club, 47 of them went into the back of the net.
They did.
Now, as somebody who was in the stadium at Wembley last year for the final of the Euros, and having watched the agonies we've been through in Euro 96, World Cup 1990, you may be 54, but you're looking pretty fit to me. Should you be on the list to take penalties in the World Cup coming up next week?
I would quite happily take a penalty still at my age. I really enjoyed the pressure of those situations. So I really looked forward to taking penalties. And I think that's one of the biggest things you can have as a penalty taker, is your mindset going into it has to be really positive. And I believe that was one of the biggest reasons why my penalty record was.
Well, it's a fantastic record. I say England do need you, so please.
Well, I mean, I have on occasions in the past, approaching World Cups and European Championships and stuff, the subject has come up, and I have offered my services to go and coach the players if they want some advice on taking penalties.
Mr. Southgate, are you listening?
Well, to be fair, I mean, there were probably other managers that may have been more likely than the woke Mr. Southgate to
Whoa! Gosh, I haven't even got him on to Gary Lineker yet. Is it coming home?
I suspect not. As much as I would love England to win the World Cup, I think with my realistic hat on, I think there are perhaps better teams than us. However, you never know. Football's a funny game. There's some funny results that happen.
Well, we'll cross our fingers, as we always do.
Absolutely.
And tomorrow night, we've got Sir Geoff Hurst on the programme. He's going to be joining me in Wembley, just outside the Wembley Stadium. Anyone that still wants to come along, please go to gbnews.uk. Now, Matt, one of the things I like about you is that in my life, I've been sacked many, many times. And you were, of course, sacked by Sky News for having opinions that did not
Sky Sports, not Sky News.
I apologise, Sky Sports. Your opinions did not conform. You were doubtful about lockdowns.
I think doubtful is quite a moderate way of describing it. I think there were a lot of people 2.5 years ago who were sounding the alarms of what we are now going through in terms of inflation and the state of the economy and the state of the waiting lists at the NHS. There were a lot of people talking about that when we first decided to lock down. And those people were ignored, they were censored, they were ridiculed, they were mocked as granny killers. And right now, we are living through, in this country, what those sensible people were predicting what would happen. See, what I would like to know is, we had a pandemic plan in place in this country. That plan was thrown out of the window, completely ignored, and in favour of what China were doing. And not one single person has ever mentioned that in our government. Not one of them has explained to us why we threw away a plan that was already in place, and the Great Barrington Declaration was kind of pretty much what it was about. They knew very early on that the main people that were affected by it, they knew the demographic of people that were going to be affected by it. So you would protect those kind of people, and you let the rest of the economy carry on as normal. Because I think we've seen from what's happened in other countries that if you were a country that didn't lock down, everyone didn't die like everyone was predicted. Neil Ferguson's predictions were one of the most scandalous things I've ever seen in this country.
Well, there's some real passion there. There's some real passion there, real belief.
I'm a bit angry still, to be honest. I'm a bit angry because I think as a government, I think we were let down very badly by people. One of my most annoying things now is to watch Rishi Sunak, and I know he went to the Dell and liked watching me play.
Yeah.
I don't care. One of the most annoying things I've seen since he's become Prime Minister, he's just failed to take any blame at all for the position we're in now, when he was the Chancellor that was making these decisions and giving everyone free money.
So, Matt, now you're a blogger, a broadcaster. What are you doing?
So, yes, I've found a new career. I think everybody in the room needs to download the Getter app and start following me on there. I'm doing some fascinating live streams every Monday night, 8 o'clock, called The Flip Side, where I interview people, and it was mostly the people that have been silenced and the people that were ridiculed. And that's why I called it The Flip Side, because I believe in this country we should be able to have free and open debate, and both sides of the argument should be heard.
Absolutely.
And we haven't had that.
Absolutely. No, I agree with that entirely. Final quick thought. When are you standing for Parliament?
Yeah, exactly.
You've got to get into politics.
I have to be honest with you.
You believe in this so strongly.
I believe in that strongly. What I don't believe in, and I think a lot of people, especially the gentleman who was so eloquent earlier on, who suggested that at the moment you can't tell the difference between the two main parties. And I heard it described recently as being the two cheeks of the same backside. And I think that's... I think the system in our country is not a very fair one. No. And I think that to try and go into that system at the moment would not suit me at all.
What a pleasure having you on Talking Pints here in Southampton. Thank you, Matt Le Tissier.
Thank you, Martin.
Now, we're going to finish. Will Tierney has written a song. It's called Quayside. It's about this city of Southampton. Take it away, Will.
Clap your hands now, everybody. Here we go. I could sit and enjoy a beer and the marina life, looking at the glistening boats bobbing in the sunshine. No one of them is mine, but I'm always on the quayside, watching the waves. There's worse ways to spend the time, and I'm always always on the quayside. You got it. In the hope that you'll be walking by. You know the chorus now, everybody, so join in next time. You got it. Get many sunny days over in the UK. Most of these yachts never get used anyway, but I'm always on the quayside, watching the waves. There's worse ways to spend the time. Let me hear. I'm always on the quayside, in the hope that you'll be walking by. It's November, boats are out of the water, but I have never been just a fair weather boater. Everyone's gone home for the evening. I'll be here for all the seasons. I'm always on the quayside, watching the waves. There's worse ways to spend the time. All together. I'm always on the quayside. Beautiful. In the hope that you'll be walking by. In the hope that you'll be walking by.
Very good. Very good.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the Public Services